What if I told you you never had to make your own choice or decision ever again? That everything was predetermined and already decided for you based on your health? Sure, at first it sounds like a good idea, easy, of course, but eventually you'd be fighting over your own right to make your own decision. You see, we don't know what's going to happen to us today, tomorrow, even a year from now. In fact, that's the beauty of life, is the unknown, the not knowing what is about to happen next. So therefore, we make decisions, we make choices based off of our environment around us, based off of past influences, based off of experiences. I'm sure you're wondering, what does this have to do with strength training? So I'm a strength coach, an athlete, and a gym owner. And contrary to the belief, my job is not just to teach people how to exercise. It's also to teach them how to make decisions, how to make choices to better themselves, to lead themselves on a better path. A common model I use very often is the 7 aspects of health: social, emotional, spiritual, environmental, occupational, intellectual, and physical. All of these are avenues we can use to create a little more balance towards a holistic life. Balance is key. Let's start with social. Building relationships. As humans, we rely, in fact, we're attracted to other people. We love relationships. We love friendships. We like like-minded individuals. We also like to challenge one another. Build yourself a community based off of this. In the end, this will be your biggest support system. Spiritual. Now, I'm not up here to tell you what to believe in. Absolutely not. But I will say is we all have something in common. We're searching for something greater than ourselves, a sense of inner peace. This you can find with spiritual health. Maybe it's through yoga. Maybe it's through meditation daily. Maybe it's church or a specific religion, or just a simple practice. Find something that brings you peace. Emotional. We're faced with a lot. We need to understand ourselves, understand what we're feeling and how to tackle these challenges. Sometimes as humans, naturally like to hold our feelings in. We like to hold our thoughts in. But really, what helps us with this is actually processing them through talking to one another. Even if it's to a journal, write something down, this will help you. Intellectual. Expand yourself and open yourself to new ideas and new experiences. See, time is a true measurement. It's the proof of existence. The reality of it is we never stop learning, and that's because of this. We think we're smarter, but reality of it is time is always changing. We're always learning something new. Environmental. It's our responsibility to respect the land and the air around us. It's not always about feeding the machine. What if we rode our bikes and longboards everywhere in replacement? What if we planted more trees? What if we use more natural lighting at home? Take care of what's around you. Occupational. Show of hands, who in here loves what they do for a living? Yes. Who in here dislikes what you do for a living? It happens, believe it or not. The reality is life is too short to not spend so much of your time doing something that you don't love. So find something that you have extreme passion for and that you're good at and that you can excel in. Physical. I'm sure you're expecting to hear this one, but remember, it's not everything. So think of yourself daily. How are you building and growing on a daily basis? I can sit up here and tell you, exercise regularly, eat clean, drink 100 ounces of water a day, sleep plenty at night. But sometimes that can end up creating more stress when I put those demands on you. So what if we saw health a little bit differently? What if we saw clean eating as not just expensive and a lot of work and tasteless? Instead, we saw it as a form of nourishment, a form of longevity, a form of energy. When you go grocery shopping, I challenge you, shop in the entire outer edge of the grocery store. Think about what's on the outer edge of the grocery store. Produce, meats, natural foods, not boxed foods. If it doesn't have a mother, if it didn't come from the ground, don't eat it. That's simple, right? What about exercise? Move more. As humans, we're naturally meant to move. We're meant to jump, meant to crawl, meant to sprint. Our bodies aren't meant to be sitting tight in cubicles in this position, creating a terrible posture. We're meant to feel good. That's what we forget sometimes. We don't have to be full of disease and full of injuries. We can actually feel good. That's where that balance comes into play. This model has helped me and a lot of my clients as far as building a better path and direction for themselves. You see, we're handed something. We're handed a challenge, an experience. It could be good. It could be bad. It could be unplanned. But reality, this is life. A lot of it is unplanned. So that we make our choice. Some famous names you might know, whether musicians, actors, writers, composers. Paul Delio, famous filmmaker, diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He saw this as a blessing, not a curse. Scientist Stephen Hawking, who furthered the theory of black holes with Albert Einstein, was diagnosed with ALS at a very, very young age. But through this, he spoke through a machine. He went on, kept going. He wrote books, he wrote lectures. Claude Monet, blind, vision completely taken away. Helen Keller, blind and deaf, she graduated college and she went on to fight for women's rights to vote and for birth control. Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, I know you know who they are, both blind. Beethoven, deaf at 20. He composed and created music through hearing tubes and through the vibrations of his piano. And he's still heard in classrooms and homes today. President Roosevelt, paralyzed from the waist down, carried us through the Great Depression and through World War II. One of the greatest minds known, Albert Einstein, known to have Asperger's, dyslexia, memory issues, speech problems. Look what he did. Now I want you to remember this. You don't have to be a famous name or someone particularly well known in order to be faced with a challenge and deal with that. We all have a choice. A few other artists, or a few other names you may know, David Letterman, Bob Dylan, Audrey Hepburn, Abraham Lincoln. Depression. Depression is a big deal in our country. And these people faced that head on and became great successes. Hitting it a little closer to home, a dear friend of mine, Deborah Cordner Carson. We were great friends, we still are great friends, and training partners in CrossFit. Deborah was diagnosed with lymphedema when she was 22. It started with a pulled groin. She developed a lymphoma, and it turned into her lymph nodes. From there, where she was stripped her abilities as a collegiate athlete, a collegiate sprinter at Iowa. She continued to move forward. She retaught herself how to walk, retaught herself then how to run, and years later advanced onto the CrossFit Games for 3 separate years. She wasn't about to let this define who she was. She wasn't gonna let this condition take over her body. She made a choice. She pushed through it. She realized how much strength she really, really has. We all have a story. You just have to tell it. A little bit about myself. I grew up a girly tomboy, if that exists. I played outside lots. I followed my dad around, especially to the gym. Played lots of sports, basketball. Terrible at, for the record, if you want to know the truth on that one. I wanted to play hockey. I was in 4th grade, and we didn't have any girls' teams, so I played with the boys. Although scary, being the only girl, had to step outside of my comfort zone. That progressed into high school. Played on the high school team as well with the boys. This taught me a lot about myself, from confidence, especially to standing up for myself. I had a band of 23 brothers who were my bodyguards. Every time we had games, teams gunned for me. They hated the fact that there was another female out on the ice. It bothered them. They gunned for me, challenged me, checked me really hard. I fell a lot. I got back up again. I'm pretty sure my parents probably thought I about quit, but I wasn't about to let that force me to quit. Instead, it pushed me further. This experience also encouraged me as I got more into my 20s to start powerlifting, which at that time was not a very female-dominated sport. It was primarily all men and a few women, and it was also seen as very masculine. I wanted to bring the feminine side to that, to get rid of the stigma that it was just a male-dominated sport, that as a female, you could be strong, you could be feminine, that strength is beautiful. This poster I had hanging in my room when I was growing up. It's a Nike poster, and it reads, for quite a while, it says, if you let me play sports, I will be less likely to become depressed. If you let me play sports, I will learn what it means to be strong. And this list goes on. Now, this isn't just about women or girls. It's also about men. We're put into situations, or we hold ourselves back from situations in fear of the unknown, in fear of, will I not fit in? Will I not be good enough? Will I not be strong enough? It's great encouragement that still stands today. This commercial on the top you guys might recognize was an Always commercial, like a girl. Anyone ever seen this commercial? It's amazing and powerful. They take real, actual, live young girls and they ask them, what does it look like to run like a girl, to throw like a girl, to kick like a girl? And it's incredible how these young girls see that, the stigma that they grew up around, that it wasn't very normal for girls to play sports or to have a powerful role. Times are changing. Times have changed. It's more common, obviously, for women now to be involved in sports, but also to take on bigger leadership roles. The two pictures on the bottom is a group of young kids, boys and girls, encouraging them to keep moving, to get stronger, not just physically, but also emotionally on the inside. The other picture is a group of young girls and representing to them and teaching them and getting them to brainstorm, what would it be like? What does it look like if I want to be strong, if I want to play sports? It was my sophomore year of college. I was then playing women's hockey for my college team and running track. American Idol had just aired for the first time. I was living the broke college student life, living off ramen noodles and lots of cheap beer. Life was pretty awesome. I had zero money, but I was playing sports, and that was one of the greatest things for me. Well, things started to change for me. I started to wake up in extreme pain. I had pain in my feet, my ankles, my knees, my hips, my wrists, my hands. I started to develop trigger fingers, where your hands lock up completely, and you have to literally pop your fingers open. I remember calling my mom one day and saying, something is wrong with me. I feel like I'm 100 years old. I physically crawled to the bathroom one day. I was in so much pain because I couldn't even walk on my own feet. Softball-sized swelling on my knees, on my feet, on my wrists. A few specialists later, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, one of the most degenerative forms of arthritis anyone can develop. It's actually more common than we realize. About 1.5 million people in this world have it, and about three times as many of that number is women. Rheumatoid arthritis is a chronic disease. It's basically your immune system is attacking your body, your joints, your ligaments. It's confused as far as what is a foreign substance and what is not. Well, it's now labeled an actual systemic disease because it can also attack your organs. It can build up nodules, which are small little bubbles. Essentially, they're like little balls that attach to your joints, but also your lungs, your heart, your liver, even your vocal cords, which cause hoarseness. This is why I sound like a seal most days, is because of that hoarseness. So we don't really know what's causing this quite yet. But when I had my x-rays after my first visit, they told me if I didn't stop running, stop skating, I would be crippled and have both hips and knees replaced before the time I was 30. I was depressed. I felt empty. Imagine as a kid having everything stripped from you, especially your physical abilities, to be able to run and play. That was me as a 20-year-old. Now, we don't know exactly what causes it. Is it genetics? Is it hereditary? Is it environment? Or is it simply so many high inflammatory factors in someone? Is it diet? This we don't know. So being the stubborn woman I am, yes, I did take my medication. I still take it. It's Enbrel. It's an injection that you take once a week. That's technically an inhibitor. So beyond that, I wanted to find a more natural source. I tried acupuncture. I tried hot yoga, far infrared sauna, mobility work, tons of mobility work, massage, and also some food eliminations. It's pretty incredible when you think about what we put in our bodies every single day and the effect it has on us. A big effect. Biggest thing that we can take out of our diet, in my opinion, would be sugars and fats, saturated fats. Fat is not the devil. We must remember this. More unnatural fats like canola oil, which we find in a lot of our food. Be careful on this, because basically what these are doing is they're causing your immune system to overreact, to go crazy, causing more joint pain and fatigue. And this isn't just with rheumatoid arthritis. Think about all of our diseases that we can carry. So much of it is stemming from inflammation. What would happen if we found all the sources of inflammation? Where is it coming from? Or potentially, what can we do to try to rid inflammation? Let's look at some cleaner options. Cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, kohlrabi, blueberries, particular spices like turmeric powder, curry powder, ginger roots. Outer edge of that grocery store like we talked about. Fatty meats. Fats are great for us, but it's got to be the right type of fat, a natural fat. After years of experimenting with this and still incorporating my medication, I decided I needed to teach other people how to move. I needed to spread this because this was beginning to help me. I went against what my doctors told me, and I kept moving. I competed in powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting. I coached high school girls hockey, teaching those women what it looked like to also create health for their body, but also to be young, strong women. I competed in CrossFit for a while, and I now compete in the National Pro Grid League, which is the very first professional sports league to have men and women combined on one team. Pretty incredible how far we've come. Pretty fascinating if you think about it. I wasn't about to let this disease take over. So with that movement spreading, I wanted to teach more people. Our bodies, again, like I said, are not meant to be cooped up. We don't have to assume that with age, we get more uncomfortable. We become injured. Our muscles get tighter. We should become crippled. You should assume you should have surgery. We have to take a different approach to that. We used to run, jump, crawl. Sure, those were simpler times back then, but what if we had a slight fraction of that mentality? If you look at this photo of Jack LaLanne, who died in his mid-90s. Who remembers Jack LaLanne? Invented the jumping jack. This is true. He, like these young little peanuts you see in the other pictures, was fearless. He wanted to go against the stigma of age and disease, that you don't have to let age slow you down. It doesn't have to be an excuse for yourself. He encouraged others to really challenge themselves. Now that I speak about those 7 elements, if we go back to that, yes, I focused a lot on physical, but that's what worked for me. But what I want you to know is there's 7 different aspects there. Find your balance. Find what works for you. Maybe it's social. Maybe it's emotional. Maybe it's spiritual. We all come from a different place, but somehow we can meet in the middle. One of my favorite quotes, comparison is the thief of joy. Think about that one more time. Comparison is the thief of joy. We live in a world full of comparing one another, on feeling bad about ourselves if we're not up to this standard or that standard. We all come from a different place. If we stop comparing ourselves to one another, then we can actually tackle our own personal challenges that we take on. Thank you.